Bollywood director Karan Johar has become dad to twins. Kejo has tweeted that his children Rui and Yash are the two most wonderful additions to his life and lifelines. In June 2016, actor Tushar Kapoor had also announced the birth of his son through surrogacy. However, that had prompted the centre to frame guidelines for surrogacy. Once approved by Parliament, there will be a complete ban on commercial surrogacy, but altruistic surrogacy will be permitted for needy infertile couples under strict regulations. While Bollywood has been leading a family kranti by adopting surrogacy as means to have children, the question is India ready for this single dad?
By becoming a parent of two children born last month, Karan Johar has joined the ranks of celebrities who have become parents by means of in vitro fertilization technique by which their children have been born. Although such kind of a technique is legal, yet there are several contentious issues which have repeatedly been raised by human rights activists. Several activists claim that children born by such a technique are deprived of a normal family and an upbringing since they are brought up by a single parent. Yet it remains to be seen how such kind of a contentious issue is looked upon by the society and the law at large, since such techniques are increasingly being applied year after year. In Delhi with video journalist Rohit, this is Abhimanyu Sharma for NewsX.
We are still not very clear what exactly the government is thinking about doing it, because the case is going on, but still there is no guidelines clearly instructed by the government. So women activists, lawyers, general public should come forward. We have been brought up in that culture from our childhood, because we have, we believe in God, goddesses, and our culture is totally, not kind of Western culture which I am talking about. Hindus are deep-rooted. Hinduism is deep-rooted in our culture.
Abhimanyu Sharma is joining us with further details on this story. Abhimanyu, a big debate, of course, erupting once again after Karan Johar's decision to adopt two twins by surrogacy.
Well, exactly, a debate has certainly erupted, and of course it has exposed only the previously existing fault lines on this contentious issue. Of course, there are legal tangles with regard to the rights of the child born by means of surrogacy, and also by means of the lady who gives birth to such a child, since she may not have complete rights over the child and will have to give up the baby as soon as the child is born. Also, there are several contentions which have been repeatedly raised by human rights activists, both on the health and safety and security of the lady giving birth to the child, and also on the legal status of the child, on who exactly is the parent of the child. Of course, there have been several cases which have been studied across the globe. In one case, in such kind of a situation, there was a homosexual couple who had decided to opt for a child by means of surrogacy, and by the time the child was born, the couple had parted ways and were not together anymore. So of course it left the child in the lurch, and there are a plethora of several other issues which require to be addressed threadbare. Of course, several months back, a union minister had hinted at putting in a policy in place as far as surrogacy and in vitro fertilization is concerned. Also, the minister had indirectly pointed at a fad amongst celebrities to go for surrogate children, even if they had biological children of their own, of course, which was hinting at a Bollywood star without naming the Bollywood star per se. And in this case too, of course, Karan Johar is not the only celebrity in India who has opted for a surrogate child. Tushar Kapoor, of course, has been one of the recent persons in public memory for a surrogate child. Tushar Kapoor, of course, has been one of the recent persons in public memory who has done so. And apart from that, the kind of issues which have been raised, they range from human rights issues to emotive and psychological problems which might arise from the fact that the lady giving birth to the surrogate child will not be considered as his or her real mother, and that is something which on the basis of human rights and in the eyes of several activists, it can be seen as inhuman per se, although there are conflicting views in this regard. Also, religion plays an important role, as several activists have stated. And of course, although Indic religions, particularly Hinduism and Buddhism, have written in their scriptures which certainly indicate towards test tube babies and in vitro fertilization, if we thoroughly go through Ramayana and Mahabharata, yet it is something which is not greeted it's not greeted with open arms in present day society, since there are a plethora of issues which require to be addressed, both in terms of the cultural norms and also on the basis of several rituals which might smirk at the status of such babies born by means of such in vitro fertilization. Also, legally speaking, there may be several issues which require to be addressed at this point of time, since surrogacy or in vitro fertilization per se is something which is legalized in some countries and illegal in other jurisdictions. So that is also an issue which requires to be addressed, and there requires to be a debate not only amongst the parties involved, but also amongst child and women rights activists at large, since it also raises questions over the status of the women giving birth to the child in case it's not a test tube baby and a woman's body is being used. So of course that is something which requires to be looked upon not only from the perspective of human rights, but also from the perspective of the fact that surrogacy or in vitro fertilization gave rise to expectations of several childless couples when it was brought in place. And now today,
just stay with us, just stay with us. In fact, we're also being joined, Abhimanyu, now by Nilanjana Chakrabarti, who's an activist. Nilanjana, how do you react to this this debate that is, of course, erupted once again by Karan Johar's decision?
Yes, I look at it in two ways. One is that I'm happy that there is this community where probably they can have children through surrogacy and they can raise a family. That's one aspect of it, and it's a heartening sign. They are deprived, their rights are being questioned. So in a way, this will kind of complete them. That's one aspect of it. But having said that, in a country like India, where surrogacy is still a very, very new issue, I think we really need to look into the laws, the privileges, the rights of women who are surrogate mothers. What is the kind of dealings that goes on? One. Two is, what is the kind of psychological impact that it can have on society, and even the wear and tear of the body. I think that is really, really vital. So one needs to probably look into these factors, especially as far as women are concerned, because monetary gains are an important factor which you cannot deny. And in a country like ours, where most people are below the poverty line, or somewhere in the middle class group. So why the whys and hows of the psyche of the surrogate mother needs to be explored, and also the privacy rights. There are a lot of issues here, and also how has this lady, how has she given permission to be a surrogate mother? What about her family? How does society view this entire matter? So there are a lot of layers in between which really need to view, and I think we very soon we will probably need to have certain laws, certain clauses and provision in place, because we've had Tushar Kapoor also having a son like this, and now Karan Johar. So needless to mention Mr. Shah Rukh Khan and Amir Khan. So it is a phenomenon which is now gradually catching up with the celebrities endorsing these kind of let's say actions, or it's a kind of a movement that's really happening in the country. But are we prepared for the psychological aspect? That really needs to be examined. And are these women actually well protected? I think that also really needs to be examined. So there are both ways of looking at it. But I'm sure, let's just be very optimistic about this, and let's just think that, we could probably bridge the gap somewhere. And the government also should realize that, taking a cue from the West or the other countries which are more familiar with this kind of system, to actually incorporate and, the laws that the rights, the privileges, the health, welfare of these women are protected. Because there are many times when one woman has given birth to many children. I know I have read case histories of women who have actually have been surrogate mothers to more than one children. So what are the factors, which could actually impact these children? It's okay, it's fine, you have surrogate children, but what about these surrogate children. I mean, one needs to really investigate, maybe analyze and research this entire matter. It's a huge area, and it's a new area. And yeah, I mean, one needs to actually explore.
All right. Well, Nilanjana, do you also feel that, the government needs to take a decision once and for all as to, what they really, what their stand is, whether they want to ban commercial surrogacy, because there has been a debate over it, but a stand hasn't really been taken yet. And even as I ask you that question, I'm going to tell our viewers that we've opened it up so you too can call in and have your say on this story. We're putting out our numbers there on your screens. We'll take your calls live. But yeah, Nilanjana, that question for you.
I think, as far as commercialization is concerned, it's already there. Somewhere we don't see it. We don't want to, we don't want to accept it. But in a country like ours, as I said again, there are a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of lacuna in our systems, and it's going to take a while. But yes, the commercial aspect needs to be actually legalized, if I may put it that way. And there has to be an embargo on the number of births that a woman can give. Because, for the sake of money, if she keeps on becoming a surrogate mother, so I think somewhere it does affect the child as well, because here the father concerned each time is a different person. One has to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So one cannot ignore the fact that, surrogacy has its own pitfalls as well, and the government really needs to look, because the population is slowly increasing. This community is slowly increasing.
That's a valid point. That's a valid point, and we'll have to leave it there though. Thank you, Nilanjana Chakrabarti, for joining us with your perspective there. Also, thanks to Abhimanyu, who joined us earlier. Well, in other